I want to end just with this. I want to show you a picture because I found this picture and I found it very poignant, and I'm sure you will too. You probably remember the picture. This is a picture on a boat, and this is 1962. And there are two people in that picture. This is the TSS Fair Sky. It was a Sitmar Line boat. Tell me who's in that picture.
Well, it's my mum sitting there on the...
Marianne.
As I see it, Marianne on the far right. She's next to her brother, George, and standing up in white is a dashing fellow who happens to be my father, Carlo, who was a purser on the ship that my mother travelled to on that long journey.
To England?
To England, here where she lived in London for a while.
And she fell pregnant?
She did. She had a relationship with Carlo, and during, I think, not just on the ship, but clearly from piecing it together.
So you were conceived in England?
When he... Quite likely, that's right.
So you're one of us.
When he visited...
You're English.
I'm still not going for you in the ashes, so don't try that. Don't try that on.
But you accept you could have been conceived in this country.
That's not going to happen. I think chances are I was.
Yeah.
I think I was here when the ship used to berth at Southampton. And my mum travelled, met him, had a relationship with him, fell pregnant. He was, when she told him he was engaged to someone, the person who became his wife back in Italy. And so she went back to Australia, had me, made the courageous decision in 1963 to be a single mother and to raise me. She was very Catholic. So it was a difficult thing for the family. And at that time...
She was urged to have you adopted.
She was, and that was what was very common at the time.
Your life could have been so different.
It would have been very different. And at the time it was to be that I would be adopted out, and that the story would be told in the local community and in the family that she had got news of my father's death, and that had caused her to the trauma to lose her child. But she couldn't do that. There was a moment where a nun at the hospital knew that she was the sort of person who she just really didn't want that to happen. She was under a bit of pressure. So she brought me into my mum, and my mum was never going to let me go.
What a moment. I mean, that's sliding doors.
Oh, absolutely.
Of an incomparable, enormous consequence.
Oh, and she then adopted his name, Albanese.
But continued to pretend that he had died in an accident.
That's right. And I was told that.
Including to you.
Yeah, I was told that until I was old enough when she felt I could understand.
You were 14, I think.
I was 14, 15, you know.
How did you feel when you found out he's potentially still alive?
Oh, at the time, I mean, I was a pretty tough young kid. We had a difficult upbringing. I mean, my mum had rheumatoid arthritis and was crippled up, was an invalid pensioner. We lived in a council house where she had lived her whole life. My grandparents had died by then. So it was just me and Mum. We didn't have anything economically, but I had her unconditional love, and that was enough for me. And so I said, I'm not interested, you know, that you're enough for me, which is what she needed to hear. So while she was alive, I didn't search for him, but she died in 2002. My son had come along in 2000, and there was a moment where I was at her gravesite, and my little boy was very little, said, you know, where's your daddy? And I sort of realised that, you know, I needed to, and he had a right to understand what had happened. And so I had, I guess, once she passed away, I could then search for him without bringing any sense that she wasn't all I needed. And so I found him in 2009.
Well, it's an amazing story because this is nearly 40 years later.
Yeah, 46 years later.
Incredible.
I was 46 when we met.
Right, and by pure chance, a friend of yours is now running the ship company that had been renamed several times. It was now Carnival Cruises. You knew this woman, and she helped the search, and they find your dad's old employment card
details
in some dusty, rickety area in Genoa where the original ship's stuff had all been sent.
Yeah.
And from that, you were able, by now, you're a minister, right? Under
That's right. I was a minister in the government.
Rudd. And you're able to track down your dad. And you're in a meet, or you're in your office, I think, and it's a Thursday, and you get a call from this friend of yours who's running the ship company, and she just says, "We've found him."
It was a remarkable moment, and I was chairing a ministerial council meeting of all the state and territory ministers, so an important meeting that night. And I told my staff to go on without me, and it took my breath away. It was an extraordinary moment.